Hey everyone, so we are starting our third method for solving quadratics. So we did factoring, we did completing the square, and this one's called the quadratic formula. All right, so pause the video and I want you to solve. I'm not telling you how to do it, you just have to do it. So the first one, that's factorable. So we've got x minus 6 times x plus 1 equals 0. So x equals 6 and x equals negative 1. That's it. Now, number 2, you have to complete the square because there's no, that's not a factorable problem. So I'm going to complete the square. X minus half of 4 is 2. Then I have to subtract off that 4, combine it with the negative 6. So that's negative 10. The 10 is going to go to the other side. Take the square root. Plus or minus 10, root 10. So x equals 2 plus or minus root 10. And that's it. So that kind of shows you why you need to know both. Okay, so the general form for a quadratic equation, we already mentioned, this got cut off, is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So notice you have that 0. Now that's important because for this formula we're learning today, you need to be able to identify a, b, and c. All right, so pause the video and write down what values do you get for a, b, and c. So a, b, c. A, b, c. A, b, c. All right, so the first one, a is in front of x squared, 3. B is in front of x, 9. C is the number by itself, 15. Number 2, a is 2, the number in front of x squared. B is the constant in front of x, so that's a negative 1. And C is 4. Now, number 3, notice we don't have a 0, so we need to rewrite that. So I usually bring everything over to where x squared is, but there are 2 answers. I'm going to make this 10x squared minus 10x minus 11 equals 0. Now, if you have negative 10x squared plus 10x plus 11, that's fine too. This is just how I wanted to do it. But you have to have a 0. Number 4, our coefficient of for x squared is negative 1. The one with x is 18, and there's no c term, so it's 0. Similarly, 5, the coefficient of x squared is 1. This time there's no x term, so the b is 0, and your c is negative 36. And number 6, again, we have to rewrite it. So I'm going to rewrite it as 2x squared plus 4x minus 13 equals 0. If all your answers are opposite sign, it won't matter. And that's it. Okay, so I'm going to show you where this formula comes from. It comes from completing the square. Right? Would never expect you to do this on your own, which is why I'm doing it for you. I'm just showing you where it comes from. This is a lot. All right, so the first thing we're going to do when we're completing the square, we have to get rid of the number in front of x squared. So I'm going to divide everything by a. X squared plus b over ax plus c over a. So then when we complete the square, x plus half of the inside. Half of b over a is b over 2a. And then we have to subtract off the square of the inside. B over 2a squared is b squared over 4a squared plus my c over a. So now I need a common denominator. Remember, I would never expect you to do this. I'm showing you where this formula comes from. So common denominator is 4a squared. So 4a and 4a. So this becomes negative b squared over 4a squared plus 4ac over 4a squared. So we get negative b plus 4ac all over 4a squared. And then we have that x plus b over 2a in front. Now we have to move this thing to the other side. Sorry, I'm just looking at the signs. So this becomes, I'm gonna move the b, the negative, yeah, it's negative b. So it becomes x plus b over 2a squared equals negative b plus 4a c over 4a squared. I'm going to distribute this negative in to here. So it becomes b minus 4ac all over 4a squared. So that negative b became positive b and so on. And then we take the square root of both sides. I did something wrong. Oh, it was b squared. I dropped the square with the b. I was like, something's missing. There's a square there. Okay. So then we have x plus b over 2a equals plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. But since we know the square root of 4a squared, I'm going to write that as b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And then we're going to move the b over 2a to the other side. And then typically what happens is we write this as one big fraction since they're both over 2a. Negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And that's our answer. Okay? I know, that's a lot. I just wanted you to kind of follow along. It's just that process of completing the square. So that formula is actually the quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You need to memorize this formula. There's actually a song. I'll make you sing it in class. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. There's actually a bunch of different versions of it. I have another one I like to sing a lot. But you do have to memorize that formula. Like, no joke, you need to memorize that formula. All right. So the purpose of the quadratic formula is if you can't factor, you don't want to, it's basically instead of completing the square, you can use the quadratic formula. Now, number 7, this is factorable, but I want to take you through the quadratic formula just so you can see it. It's going to have the answer will be nice because it is actually factorable. So I'm going to write out the formula. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So now looking at this problem, I have my a, my b, and my c. What's my a? Is 1. There's nothing in front of x squared. My b is 6, and my c is negative 27. So I'm going to plug into the formula. X equals negative b, so negative 6 plus or minus the square root 6 squared minus 4a 1 c negative 27 all over 2 times 1. So we're going to go through and we're going to simplify. Negative 6 plus or minus the square root. So that's 36 plus 4 times 27. So that's 54. It's 108 all over 2. Negative 6 plus or minus the square root 144 all over 2. Come up here. Negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 144 is 12 all over 2. I'm now going to divide. Negative 3 plus or minus 6. And then we're going to figure out what those two numbers are. Negative 3 plus 6 is 3. Negative 3 minus 6 is negative 12. And those are my answers. It's a little bit of work, but you know what? It's better than completing the square with some of those numbers. So I use this when I don't want to complete the square. So it's either factoring, because it's factorable. I complete the square if my middle term is even and it's not factorable. And then when I have coefficients and odd numbers, I use the quadratic formula. All right, so I want you to pause the video. I want you to write down just the plugging in part. So what's your A, B, and C, and plug in. So I'm going to write the formula again. Negative B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. In this case, my A is 3, number in front of x squared, B is negative 10, and C is 8. So negative B, so that means I have a positive 10, negative negative, plus or minus the square root, negative 10 squared, minus 4AC, all over 2 times 3. So now I'm gonna go over here. I usually do this in one. If I have a calculator, I'll just do it in the calculator. 100 minus 4 times 3 times 8 is 96. So that's 4. So it's 10 plus or minus the square root of 4 all over 6. So 10 plus or minus 2 all over 6. So that gives me 10 plus 2 over 6, which is 2. And 10 minus 2 all over 6, which is 8 over 6, which is 4 over 3. And those are my two answers. X equals 2, x equals 4 over 3. All right. So like if I had the choice for this one, I would probably complete the square because personally it's faster. But let's just keep going with the quadratic formula to get used to it. All right, so I'm not going to write the formula out again. A equals, B equals, C equals. A is 1, B is 10, C is negative 2. X equals negative B, negative 10, plus or minus the square root. B squared minus 4AC, all over 2 times 1. Negative 10 plus or minus. So that's 100 plus 8. 108 all over 2. Now 108 is not a perfect square. We do have to see if we can simplify it though. Let's see. 108 is 4 times 27. Oh, bigger number then. 36 times 3. 36 and 3. So the square root of 36, the square root of 3, 6 root 3. So we get negative 10 plus or minus 6 root 3 all over 2. And now my last step, I'm going to divide by the 2. So negative 5 plus or minus 3 root 3. Remember when you're dividing a square root, these divide, you don't divide the 2 into the square root. And I'm going to leave my answer like that. All right, try this one on your own. A is 1, B is negative 6, and C is negative 36. X equals 6 plus or minus the square root. Negative 6 squared minus 4AC all over 2 times 1. So let's see. This is 36 plus 72. It's 108 again. That's funny. So that was 36 and 3. So we get 6 plus or minus 6 root 3 all over 2. 3 plus or minus 3 root 3. Done. So it's not, once you get the formula down, it's pretty easy, I think. I don't really think this is that hard. All right, so now with this one, what do we need to do? We need 0 on one side. So x squared, 2x squared, sorry, plus 28x plus 90 equals 0. Now, you have a choice. You can just do it like this, or you can divide everything by 2. It won't make a difference. It'll just simplify out. I would simplify it because those numbers are really big, especially since I personally don't have a calculator right now. So I'm going to use the smaller numbers. Oh, this still is going to be gross. All right. X equals negative 14 plus or minus 14 squared minus 4ac all over 2 times 1. That's 196 minus 180. Oh, this is a nice number. 45 is 5 and 9. Oh, this one's going to come out nice. 45, that's 90 double is 180, so it's 16. Square root of 16 all over 2. Negative 14 plus or minus 4 all over 2. So that's x equals negative 7 plus or minus 2. I divided by 2 just to make my life easier. And I got negative 7 plus 2 is negative 5. Negative 7 minus 2 is negative 9. So that one actually was factorable. All right, try this one. This time we can't divide. I'm going to move the 3x squared over. Negative b plus or minus the square root of, I'm going to put 36 automatically, b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Oh dear, I do not know what 41 times. Let's see, 4 times 41 is 164 times 3 is 12, 9. 49 negative 36 minus 492. Ugh. What's that? 4. My pen turned off. 456. Negative 456. So notice there's a negative under the square root. So do you know a square root? So we're actually going to write for our solution, no real solutions. We're going to go over what happens here later, but for right now, we'll just put no real solutions. All right, last one. Write an equation of a quadratic with solutions x equals 5 and x equals negative 8. All right, so if we're writing the equation, if x equals 5, what was the factor? So remember, think about going backwards. Normally, to go backwards, we get 0 on one side. So I'm going to move the 5 over. I'm going to move the 8 over. So these two are my factors. X minus 5 times x plus 8. So my equation is, if you FOIL all that out, x squared plus 3x minus 40. In this one, our two solutions are 3 plus root 10, 3 minus root 10. So that means we had x equals 3 plus or minus root 10. So pause the video, see if you can go backwards with it. So I'm going to subtract the 3 on both sides. We need to get rid of that square, so we square both square roots. We square both sides. So x minus 3 quantity squared equals 10, and then subtract 10. So my equation is y equals, or you could do 0 equals. I'm going to multiply that whole thing out. So x squared minus 6x plus 9 minus 10. So y equals x squared minus 6x minus 1. And that's my answer. All right, kind of a long lesson, I know, but it is an introductory lesson. All right, worksheet 10.